All right, so this is a day late. Um, I went to graduation, but day 7 is here, and this was a huge day. So let's start with probably the biggest upset of the day. Portugal. Portugal drew DR Congo. And first of all, I want to say a huge shout out to DR Congo. And the more I think about this result, the more embarrassing it is for the entire team. I don't think Bruno really got on the ball that much. Not really as much of a creator in that game. And he didn't even, it wasn't like he was much of a finisher either. He's usually one of those two things, and today he was neither. It's not, but he still worked hard in the midfield and still provided something. More importantly, um, Vitinha, Bernardo Silva, and Pedro Neto do not work well. I think this World Cup has shown it's very focused on wingers who are fast, skillful, look to get by, look to move quickly up the field. And neither of them are that. They're both technical in their own right, but Silva does not have that pace. Runs in behind. They're not coming from either one of those. And we're going to talk about later how it worked so well for England. It didn't exist here. It didn't exist until Conceição, I think it was, and Leao got subbed in. Ronaldo up front didn't get much service in the first half, and the second half looked really like it was a weighing thing of you could tell of seeing everyone else score and being like selfish in that right, and it didn't help today. And it would have been okay, in the period in which they went 1-0 up, but they just didn't find him. They didn't give him the ball, and credit to DR Congo for shutting it down. Haram ball has worked so well in this World Cup, unfortunately, but it's also been fun because they're also underdog teams that are doing this, and they played very well as a unit defensively. They had a real threat on the counterattack. I think they should have had a red card towards the end. Not DR Congo, the Portuguese team. I think Araujo just clotheslined Wissa after that clever touch in behind. Definitely should have been a red. It was crazy that wasn't called. The goals. João Neves getting up there for a header. Great header. He's done it before, but it's really interesting. Tiny guy crashing the box, getting that free header. Didn't expect it. It worked well. Didn't really come through after that. But it was a good goal, and they didn't really provide anything much after that, unfortunately for them. And credit to Congo didn't let it get them down. They decided that they would, go up the other end. They'd have their chance, and they scored. Vissa scored a really important header. He's been really terrible this club season, but he worked, and he scored a really important header to get there last minute. So I think that was a good result for them. And they're a tough team to break down. They're gonna have a good time playing against Colombia and against Uzbekistan. I don't know. I think it's in that order. And it'll be really interesting to see how Colombia combat their defensive structure and what happens in that Uzbekistan game and how they go forward when they have more of the ball. But yeah, and then the next game of the day, England-Croatia, blockbuster game, and it lived up to it. It was a good game. England, fair play, played really well. Maybe it's coming home, I guess. They played spectacularly. Kane missed a penalty, got the retake, and personally, as somebody who is not on the goalkeeping side of it, I think penalty retakes are stupid, specifically when players are allowed to stutter. I think it should just be that once a player stutters, the keeper's allowed to go off of his line, because what is the keeper supposed to do if you more or less stop your run up for the point of catching him off of his line? you know. But Kane didn't stutter a second time through, went through, scored, and then Croatia scored two lovely goals. The first one, great shot, pass back, shot, powerful enough to get past Pickford, who I personally think could have done a little bit better, but it was just placed well, shot well. So don't hold that much against him. Then Croatia on the other side, they look terrible defending corners. Defensively, in general, I'm gonna get to that, but Kane is free. Free header for Harry Kane. He does not miss. He had a spectacular game. And then right before halftime, beautiful team move. Perisic runs through, splits the defense. And the one thing I have to say, looking out for, is Stones and Konsa is not a good back line. They have Gahey on the bench. They have better selection for who they're going with in this World Cup. And they kind of chose more or less the worst pairing. I think the only way you can make it worse is, I guess, Stones and Dan Burn. But anyways, they went with a pairing and it got exploited. The run between Reece James and Konsa wasn't picked up. Perisic gets a free header to lay it back to a player who finishes it very nicely. That's halftime. And you're thinking, oh wow, this game is really interesting, because as good as England are moving forward, Harry Kane dropping deep, playing in these through balls for these players to run onto, which is a genius, not a genius tactic, but it's the best working tactic of the World Cup so far, and it's been the most enjoyable to watch. They're shaky defensively, they're not solid. And Croatia, they still have firepower going forward. You can't really count them out when they're down. But oh boy, are they down. Their defense, Modric giving up that penalty, these are basic, clumsy things that you don't want to see. They're not. It felt like a lack of experience defensively in some cases. Set piece defending, and like the penalty came from set piece, and you just have to be stronger. And I think especially in the second half, it showed. England blew them away. It really should have been like 6-2, if not for the keeper making some brilliant double, triple saves. England were running away with it, were blowing them out the water offensively, and Croatia had no answer defensively. They weren't doing well. They had no grip on the game after halftime. And credit to Jude Bellingham for scoring the goal, especially when he did. It's a brilliant run, tidy finish. Oh boy, was that some bad defending, I think, from Croatia. And also credit to Marcus Rashford, everything going on, gets off the bench, gets on the field, and is reliable and scores a goal for England again. And it was a good goal, well taken goal, very tidy, and it wrapped up the game very comfortably, and now England's at the top of the group. The other game, haram ball at its finest. Ghana, Panama. As a Ghanaian, I'm happy. And I think there are some good takeaways if we negate the first half. Because the best player of the first half, injured. Ardizigi played fantastic for 45 minutes. And we saw a goalkeeper substitution because he got injured. He was dealing with early crosses. The team defensively were dealing with everything Panama had to throw at them. It was kind of weak. The early crosses, they were first to the headers. And I think that's a sign of their athleticism, the team's good defensiveness, but that might not be a system that works. They were recovering well. Those long balls over the top did not work. Nothing was working for Panama, and as little as Ghana had to offer going forward in the first half, Panama had nothing. Or as little as Ghana had, Panama didn't have an answer for the defense. And so, sub in a couple of new wingers who played a lot more forward and were able to run at Panama and stretch the defense. And they were able to provide the better chances. Ayew nearly scored. They scored at the end, and it was a good goal. And they were definitely way more likely to score towards the end and deserve the win. And that's a huge win, because now you need to go and get a point from one of your next 2 games, which, spoiler, I will be going to. Please get a point, please. But yes. And for Panama, I think it's all or nothing on this Croatia game. You're not out of it. You need a couple of goals. That's what you need. When you're looking at that game, you said we need to win 2-0. We need to more or less eliminate Croatia and keep our chances there and not lose by many against England. And Ghana look at their next game against England and go, we need to hold them to a point, and we both qualify, and we both move forward. And so, yeah. So that'll be interesting. This group is really turning out to be interesting. And finally, the last game, Colombia-Uzbekistan. It's a tough group. Speaking of interesting group, that's a tough group, guys. Colombia, I mean, they packed the house. They played very well, and they deserved the win. But don't count Uzbekistan out. They scored that equalizer, and if it were not for the keeper, who was unable to make that save on Luis Diaz's shot, the first goal is unstoppable. That's a brilliant run. Fantastic finish from Munoz. Munoz. But if Luis Diaz's goal doesn't go in, Colombia may not win that game, guys. Genuinely speaking. Uzbekistan defended very well. And the third goal, they were throwing up numbers in the last minute to get an equalizer. It happens. But, now they had to play Portugal, and I think they're looking at that game and thinking, we've got a chance to frustrate them, to get our point, and have it all to play for against DR Congo. And DR Congo, they got to go and they got to frustrate Colombia as well. They got to get a point or 3. They got to be more clinical and for their counterattacks, be more expensive, and really hold down the fort defensively. And I think the trend for that first round overall is a lot of African teams, the good ones, showed a lot of defensive resilience. They weren't giving up big chances. They were holding these teams. Cabo Verde, they held Spain to a point. Spain didn't look like they were going to score. Portugal didn't look like they were going to score again. Panama did not look like they were going to score. So the formula for these teams, I mean, Morocco gave up a goal to Brazil, but after that, they didn't look like they were going to score. The goal for these teams is to hold down the fort, score a goal, and play some haram ball, unfortunately for the viewers. But yeah. So I will make the next video after the Brazil game of day 8. And after that, it'll be a little bit tricky because, like I said, going to Boston to go see the game. So I won't be home. We'll see how it goes. Like and subscribe. Peace.